I think one of the things that maybe it goes beyond a specific project is working on problems that it matters. It will have actually an impact, understanding the challenges and opportunities.
Dr. Mina Sartipi at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga is working on a compelling project.
Automated vehicles are not going to be fully deployed tomorrow. It's not going to be next year either. And the type of work that we're doing here are getting us steps closer to that goal.
For several years, Dr. Sartipi's been studying how we move through the world.
That has been our promise, and we will keep that promise. No video is being stored. Everything is processed in real time, and out of that, we call them object, but basically it was a person, a car, maybe a SUV or a sedan. That's all we know about it.
This is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This is the podcast that tells the story of the people who call the Tennessee Valley home, examines the problems we face, and talks to people working on solutions. I'm Josh Roe. I'll be your host for this journey. Dr. Mina Sartipi from UTC joins us today. Your work is fascinating. I mean, basically, you're studying, for the most part, how people, whether it be on foot, in vehicles, move through the city. I know it's way more complicated than that, but basically, that's the gist, correct?
True. So
explain where that starts.
Yes. So we started 4 years ago, actually almost 5 years ago, understanding how the traffic flows in our city. It was mostly to make sure that how safe our streets are for pedestrians, for cyclists, for all modes of transportation, including vehicles, and how efficient it is. So that was the goal that we started the project. And we, as part of that, we built the testbed, MLK Smart Corridor. It has been up and running for a little bit over 4 years now. And it's 1.25 miles of the road, which is next to the building that we are now, MDRB, Multidisciplinary Research Building. And it's 13 intersections. There are smart intersections. We have deployed several sensors, computing capability. So we have edge computers there. They're all connected to the fiber. Through the fiber, the data comes to this building. We have a data center downstairs. The data is being processed. And also we have different wireless communication capabilities. So we have been using that basically to see that how, and this is a kind of like a representation of our whole city. It has bike lane, it has central lane, it has car charging stations, it has, so all those different things. And because part of it is downtown and businesses, there's more traffic in terms of people and cyclists going on. So that's how we have been trying to understand what is really going on and in terms of pedestrian safety and traffic flow, energy efficiency and all.
Now, all of this, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is in some way connected to the future idea of when we are in autonomous vehicles, et cetera. That's at least part of it. Is that accurate, first of all?
It is, but it's going a little bit maybe beyond that as well, that we call it connected vehicles or connected autonomous vehicles or like connected infrastructure. Some of these cases are, what if a driver, a car with a regular driver or an autonomous vehicle didn't see it, but the camera on the intersection saw it. Mm-hmm. Another vehicle saw it. Another vehicle saw that there was a black ice, a pothole, a pedestrian crossing an undesignated area. That information can be communicated back to your vehicle if it's autonomous or if it's not, if it's the newest car with the connectivity or not. But in all those cases, how can that extra information help the driver or the vehicle to make better decisions, to make the street safer for all? So it will help with the autonomous, because even today you hear this about, in case of some automated vehicles, that comes in different levels. And then in the levels that are getting more closer to fully automated, some of the left turn might be an issue, for example, because the vehicle might not perceive so those are the things that we can see, that how connected infrastructure, the one we have, can help, because it can add to what the vehicle or the driver can see.
Right. So tell me this, right? So we hear these things and we know that there's a future out there that this exists, but in practical terms, we don't live that way today. How difficult is that, connecting the now and to the then, when we all know this technology is out there, but we don't live that way? So how do you make those connections?
Great question. So basically what we see is automated vehicles are not going to be fully deployed tomorrow. It's not going to be next year either. And the type of work that we're doing here at UTC in collaborations with the city, with other universities and research labs, are getting us steps closer to that goal. Right. Because we are actually testing these things in a real environment, in a safe environment, to see that what are the steps, what are the things that we need to ensure that it's there before these things are being deployed.
Yeah.
So this kind of this type of research is filling that gap, because for the longest time there was pilot studies going on. And to really make this a reality, this needs to happen in large scales. And that's one of the things that we say the vision we have for Chattanooga is being a city-scale testbed for future of transportation in terms of automation, connectivity, electrification. So how can we actually really test these things, see these things in a city scale, and see that where are the things that we can work on and improve the efficiency and safety?
It's a great point. You have a mile and a half stretch. We all know, I don't know how many miles of road there are in America. I have no idea. But you're looking at it in a very small,
absolutely,
small scale way to try to apply it to, like you said, city. This probably is not coming to play in a rural setting. So this is probably more city related. But with that, how much do you feel like that does translates to this city as a whole, and then to say a much bigger city like in Atlanta or Chicago or somewhere like that you're trying to move around? How do you see that comparison?
So there are two things that I can answer it maybe from two different perspectives. One is we are expanding it even in Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. So Highway 27 is part of it, is being now with the city and EPB partnership, we're adding more smart poles to bring in more data from there. And that would enable us to test lane changing, merging, and ramps and such. But in addition to that, a good portion of downtown, 100 intersections in total in probably 2 years would be fully connected and fully smart intersections. So we are working on adding and increasing our footprint. But in addition to that, we're actually working with some other cities as well. We're the university lead with City of Nashville, that they have received a fund from USDOT that they are going to be adding some smart intersections in Nashville for pedestrian safety, or we call it vulnerable road users. We are used beyond just pedestrians, scooters, cyclists, and everyone basically that is not in the car. And so those are also we are the ones that are going to be working with them in terms of deploying that technology there. And that is our goal, is lesson learned here in Chattanooga can be used for other cities as well. And part of it is, even when we look at our expansion, we are using what we have learned. When we built the MLK, we deployed several different technologies because we didn't know which one is going to work. They are depending on the weather. And something that works here might not work in Chicago. We don't get snow here. They get snow.
Right.
But we get really, really used to it, like the rain, when the shower comes. Sure. So that is different than somewhere else in sunny Florida. So these are all the things that when we deployed our sensors, we had that in mind, that let's have a lot of different combination of sensors that we can also check for different weather pattern, for the night, and the way the sun hits it, it might impact the LiDAR, it might impact the camera, and all of those.
Yeah. Explain, you mentioned the expansion, and I think it was announced in January, early this year, late last year?
Late last year,
Late last year.
Yes.
And so with that, like you said, you started with a mile and a half, and now you expand, I think, to more than 100 intersections?
Few more than 100, yes.
So explain that, kind of where that goes, what do you hope to learn by doing that, et cetera?
So that project, beyond just obviously deploying these sensors, we call it Nexus of Transportation, Energy, and People. Mm-hmm. And that is where we're also bringing EVs to the game, because a lot of times this range anxiety that we talk about is a real thing that people are afraid about the EVs because of how much more can I go, and where should I go charge? Where are the available charging stations? You pull into the charging stations. Are they available? Do they really work? Is it really the kilowatt hour that they tell you? Is it really there? Because there's a demand on the grid. And maybe they wanted to give it to you, but if the demand is high, it can happen because then the grid is going to be unstable. So that work is with the city and EPB. City is actually the lead on that project, is to bring EVs from the grid perspective as well, the surge analysis on that as well. So the goal is for us when we deploy that to understand real time traffic management system there, reroute the traffic as needed, to be able to say that, optimize traffic controllers, and then say that, okay, this person with this much charge left, and this is the need for the rest of the day, it might be better to go an intersection or 2 blocks down and get somewhere else that might be cheaper, might be slower, might be faster. So bring the aspect of the people into that as well.
Yeah, I want to talk more about kind of the reality and the fears and those things in a second. But let's talk about this, because I think this is part of the fears when you're talking about monitoring people moving through the city, right? I know that you guys have taken steps that like when you look at the data, you can't tell who that person is. Explain the steps you've taken to make sure that this is, when you're studying this, it's very anonymous. You don't know who these people are moving through intersections.
Absolutely, you're right. So before we did any deployment of sensors, the project was approved August or July of that year. No sensor was deployed till March of the following year. All that part was done for community engagement. Dr. Chandra Ward, who's an urban sociologist here at UTC and one of our PhD students, they did a lot of focus groups, surveys, interviews to understand from citizens' perspective, what do they see as a need or challenge? What do they see as privacy issues? Because we didn't want to deploy a camera and somebody comes and says, what is this camera doing here? So as part of that has been our promise, and we will keep that promise. No video is being stored. Everything is processed in real time, and out of that we call them object, but basically it was a person, a car, maybe a SUV or a sedan. That's all we know about it, and then everything else is gone. We don't store that, so we won't be able to go back and look but we would be able to build that in a simulation environment. It's like a cartoons. We put like cars there, and then what we do is we go back and run our simulations that say that, okay, so if traffic controller was 2 seconds longer in red, how would that impact the traffic? We get the real-time traffic from the testbed, but what we see is just a bunch of cars and a bunch of people. But that's it. It's like a really, really, truly like a cartoon type of thing. And we work in that digital twin of the testbed. And there's no one, it has been our promise, no personally identifiable information is stored. And, I always say I work here, I pass by this corridor all the time. It's not just that we are a company here collecting data and doing research. This is where we live. This is where my kids go to school. This is where I work. So this is we take it really seriously.
Right. Yeah. I know that it's a concern for people. I know that. Do you hear a lot of pushback or questions around that idea?
I think one of the things that I'm learning every day as well is there are terminologies that we use in a scientific way is different than what it really means in a day-to-day language. You might hear me in one of the conferences, I say we monitor or we track, but the track there means that it's just tracked from a frame to another frame. This is the same object, not that I'm tracking Mina through the corridor. So when you translate the track from the scientific field, when we are talking about machine learning and computer vision, is a very different than I'm tracking Mina. I have a GPS on her, seeing where she is going. And I think some of that might have, and we are trying to do a better job there but we have heard, but there are also people that we have shown that this is what we are really collecting, that nobody knows what really is going on. But we understand that the length of the queue at that time of the day, there were 10 cars waiting and there was no other car crossing. Right. And that we see it as an issue, that we say that, okay, how can we optimize the traffic controller better? That's all we know, but I don't have no idea who were those 10 cars were or what type of car was it. We don't know any of that information.
That's probably a great thing to keep in mind for all of us across the board, right? Sometimes terminology means something different to me than someone else. And a lot can be, believed or read into things that maybe you never intended.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing is for example, we have heard about LiDAR. Mm-hmm. And LiDAR data, that's one of the things reasons we deploy LiDAR. LiDAR, you can't see anything. It's literally a box. You can't even say it's a car or it's just a box. Based on the length of the box, we say it's a car or a truck. That's it. You see a rectangle. Because it basically what it does is reflect the light. And based on that, we are saying that, okay, like what is the speed or that? And you hear that like, okay, LiDAR is being used. We can track them. Or no, that was the reason we actually did move from add LiDARs in addition to cameras because, again, there's no identifiable information. We do take that very seriously.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the concerns around just EVs, right? Just and that realm of the idea, right? A lot of people are very excited about the technology, but we also realize the infrastructure that would make us feel at least safe enough to take the money I earned and invest into vehicles or whatever, however that looks. How do you see that? Because I think that is a big concern just across the board. Because there's some folks who are like, I'm all in, let's just go now. And it's like, whoa, we can't, there are some reasons that we can't just all of a sudden flip a switch and we're all driving electric vehicles now, right?
Yes. So I think there are a couple of things we can look into that. One is really understanding that the need is beyond, we can't always say that everyone can charge at home at night.
Right.
Well, that is a very true model for many people, but at the same time, many people do not have garages that they can charge their cars. And the multifamily buildings that are being built, sure, they're not actually charging stations, or currently they're not adding enough charging stations to those things. So when we are looking at infrastructure and where the charging stations needs to be, that needs to be studied well to understand that where are the needs and making sure that these are everywhere. In all neighborhoods in the city, we need to have enough charging stations for those that they would be able to charge at any time of the day, including the night. The other thing is about the safety of and I think that is being more visible. There was a study that actually mentioned that there are fewer female driving EVs because of locations of some of the charging stations. They don't feel safe necessarily at night to go charge on location. So these are the things and I think that's the beauty of working in this area is you need to bring a lot of different disciplines to work together to do this type of research and understanding of it. This is not just the electrical engineering or computer science or another type of it needs to bring psychologists to the table. You need to bring social scientists to the table to understand and including people involved from the beginning, basically a good sample of everyone to understand the need and being able to address that. When we are talking about infrastructure and adding these charging stations, we see that more and more charging stations are being added. And when you travel long distances, it's becoming more realistic that, okay, I can drive longer distance but we need to make sure that all of these things are being addressed, that we make sure that everybody is having that peace of mind when they are driving their EV.
Yeah. I know that you've probably answered some of this question along the way. I know you have actually, but you take your entire period of research here over the last 5-6 years. What do you feel like the takeaways are that stick with you? That okay, this is important. This matters. This is the thing that we need to make sure that people understand. What are you learning there that people need to understand at this point?
I think one of the things that maybe it goes beyond a specific project is working on problems that it matters. It will have actually an impact. Understanding the challenges and opportunities. I think that's really important for a lot of us researchers. I used to do theoretical research. All I need was a fast computer and a math book probably. That's all I needed because that's what the work I was doing. But when you see that there are so many opportunities that actually there are specific problems and each city might have a different challenge on that you would be able to collaboratively within the universities and with the city and municipalities, different entities, that you can actually do a meaningful work. And the things that we have discovered throughout some of these research that we have done is the community engagement. I can't tell you how important that is, because it's both from the defining the problem and also coming up with a solution that can be deployed, so the city and municipalities can deploy it, but it also will be adopted. Because if you come up with solutions that people would not care or would not adopt, then the work would not have any meaning. I think it's kind of like looking at it, that closing the loop. this is the challenge, this is the solution, and then are we actually closing the loop, or is this something that we did it for a year and okay, good, papers has been written and that's it, and we can move on.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Before I let you go, I think just listening to this 20-minute conversation or however long we've been going here, people are going to have more questions, are going to want to learn more. Where can people go to learn more about this research or kind of the ideas of kind of where you're going with this stuff?
So one thing that maybe I didn't mention was the UTC has established a new research institute, UTC Research Institute. So if you go to, basically, if you Google UTC Research Institute, there would be links to our projects, both in terms of transportation that we talked about and also the quantum initiative that UTC has. That you'll be able, everyone would be able to get more information. And my email is there, but I can also say it, Mina, mina.sartipi@utc.edu. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Oh my gosh. So that's a broad invitation. If you have questions, just email me.
I'll be happy to, yes.
Oh my goodness
Yes.
gracious. So how much of the research do you post for public consumption as far as that goes on those links?
We post a lot of our, basically our work. Of course, some of them, if we haven't been published yet, but those would be more very scientific and detailed.
Sure.
So those would be there are researchers or faculty members or students from other universities that reach out to us because they want to understand more about the algorithm. If we haven't published it, we say that this part I can't enclose it yet, but I will let you know when it's published. But other than that, the actual work, there's a lot of information on our website that everyone can see about, from the testbed, from the data, from the type of data, the type of sensors. And quite a bit of it is there.
All right. Dr. Mina Sartipi, thanks for your time today. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to Dr. Mina Sartipi for taking time to share with all of us her thoughts on this research. And if you found this conversation valuable, please follow the show and leave a comment on any platform where you get your podcasts. And thanks for listening to Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of NewsChannel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. We hope you join us again real soon.